Good afternoon. My name is Gail Gendler. I'm the chairperson of the Planning Committee of the Interfaith Study Group. Thank you for joining us today. As you can hear, my neighbor just turned on their leaf blower as soon as I started talking, so life goes on. As some of you know, due to COVID-19, our group had to find a new way to meet. Instead of monthly in-person meetings, we are now hosting monthly Zoom webinars. This is our third, so please bear with us if any technical difficulties unfold. Hopefully, right now, you can see the three panelists and me. If not, you can select the speaker view, which can be found on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. By selecting speaker view, you should be able to see everyone at once. This webinar is being recorded. If you'd like a link to the recording, I'll put my email address in the chat area so you can email me to ask for the link. If you have comments during the conversation, please use the chat icon to share your comment. And if you have a question for any of the panelists, please put the question in the Q&A area so we can relay the question to the panelists. The chat and the Q&A are normally found at the bottom of the screen. And right now, please take a minute to adjust the volume on your device if you need to. I'm so excited about our panel and the conversation. This was a topic that the Planning Committee spent a lot of time crafting. The topic is nature as a sacred space. Joining us are three women who have a passion for exploring spirituality and the great outdoors. Auben Wilson, a member of All Saints Church in Pasadena, is an avid hiker, and she's the leader of the Holy Hikers, a group of dedicated All Saints members who hike the incredible trails in this Southern California region. She's joined by Schley Ali. Erica's a member of the Islamic Center of Southern California. She's a former international student advisor and an early childhood educator. She's a lifelong hiker. And finally, Nina First joins us. Nina is a senior at the State University of New York at Binghamton. She has extensive wilderness experience, having worked in leadership roles for many summers at an outdoor Jewish camp in Colorado. She is currently camping, so hopefully her hotspot will work. She's sort of shadowed by the great upstate New York regions. She actually has a family connection to All Saints Church. She's actually been there, so everything is tied up together. So what I'd like to do to start off our conversation, I'm actually going to start with Nina because I want to make sure your hotspot works. So unmute yourself, please. And what I'm going to start with first and foremost is if everyone could just introduce themselves to our audience and sort of give a sense of like, why is this important to you? Why were you so enthusiastic and so eager to join this topic? Nina?
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm Nina. I'm a senior studying Judaic studies, global studies, history, and Israel-Palestinian studies. I think I covered it all at Binghamton University. I'm currently camping, so excuse all the gear. I'm so excited to be on this panel. First of all, one of the most incredible spiritual religious ceremonies I've ever been to was at All Saints for Christmas Mass with my uncle and his family. So this was really cool to intersect my story and to hear the story of people that I really appreciate. Nature is, to me, the very ethos of divinity. It is a symphony that I hear in every piece of creation, and every yearning I have to adventure and to live and to experience is embedded within the very fabric of nature in the wilderness. And I feel my entire being alive and all my senses awakening under the jungles of trees and the silence of the cacophony of natural orchestra. So this experience is incredible to hear about other people's understanding and descriptions of their spiritual experience with nature, because I think it is the very essence of spirituality. And I think that divinity in the kingdom of this concepts of God and the very relationships that we have with a creator are embedded and rooted in nature.
Thank you. Aubin, would you like to give us some experience about who are you and how did you intersect and create the Holy Hikers?
Yeah, my name is Auben Wilson. I have lived in Pasadena for not quite 20 years. I hail from the East Coast, hence my background, which is a northeast picture of fall overlooking Mount Washington. Holy Hikers started really quickly because I was part of a group called the Holy Strollers, and we walked around the Rose Bowl. And while that was fun and there was fellowship and great conversation, there wasn't a lot of exercise. And I decided to go off and get other like-minded people within All Saints, but also their friends and their friends of friends and all of that to start Holy Hikers. And we hike when COVID isn't around and when the weather's permitting, once a month. And we go from as far as Palm Springs to San Diego and points in between. So it's a joy to be here, and certainly living in Southern California, it gives me the chance to hike as often as I can.
Thank you. And Eric, I think you need to unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Salam, everyone. Shalom. Peace. I'm very excited to be on this panel. Thank you so much for hosting, Gail. I'm part of the leadership of the Islamic Center of Southern California, and I've loved the outdoors my entire life. I love hiking. I love pretty much anything that has to do with outdoors: soccer, biking, swimming, horseback riding, you name it. And you know, I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you. And, you know, one of the blessings with COVID is that we still can go hiking. So that's something that I enjoy doing, especially going to the Arboretum, because it's, you know, a big space. It's really beautiful. And I feel very at peace with nature, and I feel very close to God when I'm in nature. So that's one of the blessings of COVID, is that we can still go hiking. And thank you very much for having me. It's definitely an honor to be a panelist.
Awesome. It's great for us. So I do want to say, please feel free to interject, interrupt. It should be as fluent and a conversation as if we were in person. So don't feel like you can't interrupt. I wanted to sort of get a sense of like what kinds of experience in nature provide you with a connection to your own religious beliefs. And, you know, when you're out, like I know Nina just did this enormous hike throughout the country, which maybe you can share with us, but when you're out there, how do you connect with God, or how do you feel a sense of spirituality?
I'll go. You know, for me, there's, you know, throughout the Bible, nature is throughout the Bible, and our responsibility to nature is throughout the Bible. We sing songs of praise about nature. Nature is very much deeply rooted in Christianity, but so is our responsibility for nature. So when I'm out, you know, it's a great chance to just breathe. And actually, I do some of my best thinking while I'm in nature, just as I would in the pews of a church. And for me, that's a really important place for me to just sort of have my moment of clarity and sort of a sense of the divine. And as one of my favorite poet, Mary Oliver, says, is that you have to be in awe of beauty. If you're not in awe and amazed, something's wrong with you. You need to get outside more. So for me, being in nature is being with the divine.
Nina or Erica, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, for sure. I think in Judaism, we have this concept of praying 3 times a day. In the morning, you set your intentions. In the afternoon, you pause, you check in with yourself, you see where you are with your intentions. And at the end of the day, you close the day. You look back on what you did, what you accomplished, who you were, and you put closure to it. And we derive that concept from 3 different moments in the Bible of our forefathers praying. And these moments that they pray, we understand the time from where the sun is described, and they go and they walk through a field and they remove themselves from everyone else. They create their own space, and they go and they meditate within the confines of a forest and the freedom of a forest. And we have this spiritual renowned Rabbi Nachman, who is kind of this leader of a call back to nature within the Jewish mystic voice. And he has this prayer for nature. And his fame really comes from this story of him walking into the forest every day and singing to the trees and being one with the trees. And he called that practice hitbadadut. And it really, it's rooted in being alone, in finding solitude. And there's this incredible power, this profound experience in being completely, intimately alone with just all these other vibrations of creation, all these beings of creation that are beyond the humans that we interact with. It's just us and all these other pieces of creation and all these other pieces of God's creation. And it's the most incredible experience to remove yourself from the noise and remove yourself from all the other intentions, and to sit and with your feelings and your thoughts and pray. Just experience the outside, sit on a rock, hug a tree. And I think that if I can do that 3 times a day outside, like that's all the meaning.
It's beautiful. And Erica, you're outside right now. What?
Yes, I know, because I love being outdoors. Okay, I'm gonna share something. Hold on.
Oh, thank you. The
Yeah.
Interfaith Study Group's high-tech moment.
Yeah. See if it works. Okay, so praying in nature and hiking with family or friends are experiences in nature that provide me with the most powerful connection to my religious feelings. This photo right here was taken at a place where our religious director, Sheikh Assam, and other hikers from the Islamic Center of Southern California prayed Maghrib prayer, the evening prayer, during a sunset hike at Griffith Park. And as you can see, you know, the colors in the sky, and, you know, it's green and beautiful. And there's just something very spiritual and peaceful about praying in the outdoors. And I personally feel closest to God when I'm praying either in the mosque or outdoors, especially in congregation. You know, the smell of the air, fresh air, the sound of the birds. You know, sometimes you get smells from different flowers or different trees. And it just really makes you grateful and thankful. And, you know, it's amazing to be in the outdoors and see the beautiful creations of God. And then this is a group picture of some of us hikers from the Islamic Center. This was from a sunrise hike. And then, did you want me to continue, Gail, or should I just reshare when?
No, go for it.
Okay. All right. So I do feel very spiritual when I walk in nature because I'm witnessing some of God's most beautiful creations. Majestic mountains, enchanting trees, and tranquil streams and waterfalls are just some of the elements of nature that speak to me in a sacred and spiritual way. An experience that illustrates my own connection between nature and faith is when I went for a memorable 4-generation hike in Grass Valley, California. The beauty I found in nature on this hike while bonding with my family gave me a glimpse of heaven, where we will be united with our loved ones and dwell in eternal bliss, God willing. In the Quran, God tells us, "But those who believe in God and do deeds of righteousness, we shall soon admit them to gardens with rivers flowing beneath, to dwell therein forever. God's promise is the truth, and whose word can be truer than God's?" And then this is another picture from that. And then some things about myself that might surprise you about spirituality and nature. I love soccer, and I am a youth soccer coach, or at least I was before COVID happened. And a lot of times people find that surprising because I wear hijab. I also love horseback riding. That might also be surprising to some people. I love swimming. I think that's the most surprising to people. I do wear a hijabi bathing suit, also known as a burkini, but I do love lap swimming. I love swimming at the beach, teaching my kids how to swim. And this picture right here is from a memorable trip that I took with my family when I was 4 years old. We went backpacking in Mammoth for 10 days. We got rained out, and it's an experience that lives with me to this day, that I treasure. Also, learning how to ride a horse. I know my mom's watching, so she'll probably really appreciate this. But learning how to ride a horse since I was a baby is something that is also memorable, and something I continue with my children. I continue to hike with them, and I continue to go horseback riding with them. So let me unshare. Hold on. Okay, all right.
It's beautiful. I just have to fix Nina for 1 second. Sorry, she's joining us now. I wanted to ask, first of all, that was beautiful, Erica, so thank you so much. I wanted to actually ask Auben for a second, if you can give us some insight to what it's like when you are hiking with your group, and how, because the pictures that Erica shared were just so evocative of like the majesty of what you're in the midst of. Are you, do you feel like there's certain elements of nature that speak to you spiritually, or certain elements of the group? What goes on?
Well, I think that for us, we have a very tight group of people. People are very excited and enthusiastic about hiking. But there is definitely a sense of fellowship and a sense of us congregating and coming together, which is really important. I think a lot of people in a church the size of All Saints, where there are, 1,100 pledging members or 1,200 pledging members, not everybody knows each other. And so this is one of the very special times at All Saints where people who are from all different parts of, they might come to the 9 o'clock service. That's sort of how you identify which service do you come to. And that's really important. But I think the nature part of it is really, a lot of people are excited about exploring Southern California, and having a platform to do that, where we can all be one in nature and see things that maybe we have never seen before, is very important. But I think, haven't done any night hikes yet, though there is a whole group of us during COVID who are friends from Holy Hikers, who have an All Saints connection, and we hike at least 2 or 3 times a week. And we do night hikes as well, but we haven't gotten there with the Holy Hikers yet. But I definitely think we go into, at Griffith Park, there's some beautiful places where we've gone, and there's a really beautiful grove of trees up at the top of one of the points. And we literally each sit there on a rock or on the ground and meditate for 45, half an hour or 45 minutes, and have our own moment with the divine and with our spiritual connection. But then we do talk about it. A few people actually do rosaries on the trail. So there is a sense of spirituality, and there's definitely a conversation about spirituality, but there's also a conversation about what are you going to have to drink and eat when you get done with the hike. It's
a key component.
It seems to be very important at the very end of a hike. It's like, where are we having lunch and what are we doing next?
So I'd love to pivot for a second to Nina and get a sense of, like, you're out on the trail. So you were in these leadership roles at this amazing outdoor camp, taking kids through hiking and being off the grid. So can you talk to us about, how did you infuse your experience in the wilderness? How did you teach kids to sort of have an appreciation of both their Judaism as well as like the beautiful environment? What are things you can share with us?
Wow. I think the best gift I've ever been given in the entire world was this job I have at this incredible Jewish outdoor community and camp. And part of my job is I lead backpacking trips for 15, 16-year-olds for 5 days every other week through the backcountry in Colorado. And the craziest part of it all is the way that these kids relate to themselves and in turn relate to the environment that we create together when we're out on these trails. And I think the very root of Judaism as an ethnicity, a culture, a tradition, everything, a religion, it's totally embodied in this concept of wilderness. It's a people wandering through the desert to their land, to their promised land, to their belonging. It's a people wandering from every space. And to be a Jew is to wander. It is to question and to be lost and to find solace in having no space and creating that community wherever you are, and teaching these children how to communicate with God outside is communicating with themselves and communicating with each other. And that is the very foundation on what we teach everything. Wilderness skills are rooted in how we communicate and how we respect and venerate one another, God, the land. It's all intertwined in one crazy constellation. I like to envision our campers and the Jewish people as a whole, like as a constellation, a celestial body. Sometimes we reign at different speeds, we shine at different brightness. We are individual stars. And at other times, when we zoom out, we can fall into constellations. We can fall into one image and one being together. And part of that is you have to take these children outside of the classroom. We teach prayer often inside classrooms or inside buildings, and it doesn't have the same effect, the impact, to be able to walk away from a group of people and to speak outside and to take a solo after walking 10 miles a day, carrying everything on your pack, and to just take everything off and to just walk by yourself and be by yourself for 6 hours. This is what we have these kids do. It's incredible, the poetry they write and the prayers that they find themselves speaking. There's so much to be grateful for. Everything that you put in, everything you eat, every sip of water that you taste, it's incredible on the trail. And that is what it means to be Jewish, is to find that divine relationship in every piece that you're encountering and on the trail and wandering.
Beautiful. So Erica, as you are sharing with us the story of generations who embrace nature and spirituality, what do you feel like was imbued in you, and what do you in turn try to imbue in your own children as you go out into the natural world?
Well, gratitude is the first thing that comes to mind, is just to be grateful for all of this beauty that that God has provided with in this life. And to me, when I do go hiking, ever since I was a child, it is a glimpse of heaven. And we're so blessed to be able to have these glimpses of heaven here on earth. And that's something that was instilled in me as a child, and that I continue to pass on to my children, is to be grateful to God for all of this beauty and for all of our blessings. And, to cherish the beauty of nature, take care of it. Yeah.
Okay, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Aubin, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about just my childhood and, growing up, my mother was like, go outside. My parents were like, go outside, go outside. But in the summer, we spent every summer from the time that I could walk till today in Maine, and on a lake in Maine. And we were surrounded by trees, and we were at least 2 miles by foot from a main road. And so we were one, and we were one with nature, and we spent all of our time outside swimming and being in in the woods and making creations, making mud pies with pine cones and acorns and all those things. But what was really special as we got older, people were so much more cognizant of being stewards of the environment and preserving land, and so construction stopped, which was very exciting. But then seeing some of the wildlife that had been gone, who left, like the bald eagles, and there are now every summer you can see, not only do you see the babies, but you see the full-grown adults, and you can hear the other birds reacting to, like, for example, the loons don't like the eagles, so you can hear the loons reacting and communicating with one another as the eagles are soaring. And it's really quite it's just like we somehow we all get along and we all are one, and it's a pretty special place to be, to just sit and to listen to the noise.
It makes me ask a question, like, what is our communal role in preserving nature? And are there ways in each tradition advise us how to be respectful of nature? I don't know who wants to go first, but.
Nina,
Yeah.
Erica?
I can, I'd love to. The Bible literally initiates with like emphasizing and underscoring our role, and that is to protect and to appreciate and respect and to take part. Every Friday night in the Jewish tradition, we say Kiddush. We bless a glass of wine, and we say that in using scripture from Genesis, and we repeat like a few lines, and we do so by taking part in the creation process. And every week we use that as a reminder that we are here to take part in that creation process. The world is not perfect. The world has so much to be built into, so much betterment to be built into, and we are the ones that should be undertaking that. And it is with our hands that it will be built better. And every week we bless the wine, we repeat Genesis, and we remember and we take that vow that we were given this incredible, powerful position to appreciate and hold incredible gratitude for this world and everything that constellates it. And we also have to respect and uphold the nature that we were given.
Thank you. Erica or Aubin, did you want to?
Go ahead, Erica.
Okay, I was just gonna say, this kind of goes along with the intrinsic value of nature. I definitely think that's more of a value in Islam than instrumental, because the intrinsic value of nature is morally superior. And the reason why I say that is because the purpose of life from an Islamic perspective is worshiping God and leaving the world better than how we found it. And God made us vicegerents or caretakers of this earth. And that's why taking care of our planet and not transgressing God's beautiful balance in nature is so important.
Yeah, in Christianity, obviously all things created have worth in God's eyes, and so we have to protect that. And All Saints, we're doing a lot of things at All Saints right now in terms of becoming more carbon neutral, in terms of reducing, looking at simple ways of encouraging people to look at their diets, for example, and eating less meat or eating less beef, which of course creates methane, creates greenhouse gases and stuff. So All Saints is taking a very progressive, which is not unexpected for All Saints, role in becoming better stewards and set a better example for people on how they can protect the environment.
So I wanted to ask, we have a question here that says, in thinking about Noah in his ark, or Jonah in the belly of the whale, how does spirituality connect you in times of distress, and in particular thinking about the ocean? And how could the ocean spiritually engulf or guide your hopes and desires? It's a really heavy question, but I think it's a really beautiful question. And so whoever wants to go, please take it.
I can go. I think of the ocean as a place of refuge and a place of comfort for me. And when I think of an example, I think of, everyone remembers where they were on the day of 9/11. And for me, when I heard the news, I immediately walked to the beach. I mean, I lived in Santa Barbara, so that was a luxury to be right next to the beach. But I walked right to the beach, and that's where I prayed, meditated, and cried for hours, because I was in a lot of distress after hearing the news, and thinking a lot about the people who were killed, and what the negative consequences might be afterwards. So yeah, when I'm thinking about that, it definitely brought me comfort, spending those hours at the beach and watching the waves as they came in. And it was a beautiful view and a really beautiful place to let out tears. So
Aubin or Nina?
Yeah, want to go?
Sure, thank you. I'm really meditating on that question heavily. I think what's really impactful about that question is both in those stories from the Bible, those prophets or these incredible people, these characters are different from the rest of the surrounding society. There's like this kind of the dismantling of the status quo that kind of disintegrates throughout this story. And they're sent into these bodies of water to have a physical separation so that they can welcome their spiritual separation. They can remove themselves from the, I don't want to say evil, but the the antithesis of God's perfection. They remove themselves and they put themselves in water. And water is such an incredible, powerful force. It holds just like exponential strength. And I think that we kind of embody that when we set into it. Water is like devoid of any of these boundaries or these lines that we draw on maps that we call borders. Water is just there. It's just flowing. It's just being. And it's such an amazing reminder to just be. And I think when I'm on water, at least, like personally, I feel like I'm floating above the boundaries of reality and society almost. I'm being carried from the norm and the distractions and the noise of my reality. And I think like a spirituality, in my sense, often takes form in different dimensions and realms that I'm usually perseverating in. It's a total different mindset. And I have to tap into that. And often that's a physical space that I have to tap into. And water is a pivotal force in that, where these two people set into the water to change their being, change the way of the world, and to remove themselves. And so I think if we ever have the opportunity to hop out onto the water and carry away from where we are, like, I think it's such a gift.
It's beautiful. Auben, did you want to add?
Yeah, water for me is just an instant mood changer. There's something, for someone who grew up on the East Coast and had access to the trees, but also grew up on the water. There's such a gravitational pull for me to the water, and I really feel this sense of, really being recalibrated when I'm by the water. And I, as Erica said, after 9/11, having been in New York City, in the shadows of the World Trade Center as they came down, and then, getting out of the city, the first place I went after I went to my parents' house was to the beach. And there was a afternoon prayer service there, and a sort of a place where the whole community came to the public beach, one of the public beaches. And it was such a cathartic place to be. And, the salt of the water was synonymous with the salt of our tears. And but it was a place where the community gathered in a safe space. So yeah, water takes hold of me instantly.
It's amazing. I'd like to pivot for 1 second because we sort of touched on this right at the outset, and you have brought up some really interesting personal stories, Aubin. I'd love to get a sense of your childhood can be so formative as to who you become and your experience of nature in your childhood. Do you have a story or an experience from your early years that can illustrate your belief in your love of nature or your belief of nature as a sacred space?
I think honestly it's been multi-generational, just as with Erica, where she had these experiences with her family. Our family was always, when we were together as my parents and the four of us, we were in nature. And we were skiing, we were walking, we were having picnics, we were swimming, we were raking a lot of leaves. And so for us, that was a sense of family. And our family, my parents from the very get-go, they were recycling long before anybody knew what recycling was. So, from the day one, we've been working on taking care of the planet, and we all volunteered as kids at the local recycling center. So for me, it's just, this is part of, do unto others, and it takes it to the whole new level of doing it to the natural world. And for me, that's just part of my DNA. It's part of me.
Mm-hmm. And Erica, how about your childhood? Because you have that beautiful photo from when you were,
Yeah, I would say, I have a lot of fond memories with my family and the outdoors. And also I have a lot of memories of picking up trash and doing, recycling too is a fond memory. I remember in elementary school when we first started recycling and how cool it was. And my dad used to even take me to the recycling center. It was like a fun trip to go to the recycling center, and we'd count the bottles, and he'd teach me he'd teach my brother and me where to put the different items. And it's something that's been embodied in me, preserving the environment, and because we are vicegerents, we are caretakers of this earth, and it's our job to protect it.
Yeah.
Nina?
Yeah, I think when I was, after I graduated high school, my dad and I went on a really intense through hike on the Northville Placid Trail in the Adirondacks. And I remember I strung up my pack in a tree and went to sleep and woke up to a really intense rainstorm. And the whole night I kept thinking, oh my God, my brand new iPhone 6S is in the top of my pack. And I woke up the first minute I could, got out of my tent, took down my pack, and my brand new iPhone was floating in this really deep river in the brain of my pack. And I remember for the first 3 days of this really long, 2-week through hike, I just could not stop thinking about this phone and oh my God, now I can't take pictures. Well, how will I did it even happen if I can't take pictures? It was just stressing me out so much. And there was nothing I could do about it. And then I had to keep going. And after 2 weeks, I just couldn't have given less of a heck about this phone anymore. And it was the most cleansing experience ever to be carrying this broken phone that was just completely irrelevant at this point. And it really helped me feel what I was seeing and hiking. I was taking it in on such a new level. I remember we did 12 miles in this incredible rainstorm, and we were just trudging through sheets of rain. And I turned back at my dad, and I had the best, the biggest smile. And he was either you've lost your mind or you've really found yourself. And I was I really have just actually found myself. High school just finished. All of a sudden a phone doesn't matter. And I'm just walking, and I feel at one with this trail, and I feel fully at one with myself. And I remember I just didn't get my phone fixed for so long because it was this one experience that totally defined me. And it had nothing to do with the technology that is really such an extension of self. And I think about that moment all the time, honestly, because now I'm like, my life is asynchronous in Zoom University, and my life is on this phone. And I think about that moment of just complete bliss, where I was on this trail and I was taking part in an exploration and adventure and had nothing to do with the outside world. And it was just like this intimacy of me and nature. And I think that's the best way to experience it, is to just feel like you are in this trail, and this trail is becoming part of you, and everything you're experiencing is the trail. Yeah, that's, I think that's a defining moment.
So I think what you're talking about, though, is something I'd love to touch for 1 second, is like, what kind of personal or spiritual growth do you feel in nature when you accomplish something like a 2-week hike, or a hike with your kids that's really strenuous, or a challenging holy hikers experience? Like, do you walk away thinking, I'm becoming something different just by virtue of having this inner body, outer body experience?
I do, yeah. I think at our camp, our deepest lesson is challenge by choice. We always invite campers to challenge themselves, but we never would force it or push them beyond their comfort zone. So it's challenge by choice kind of dictates a lot of what we do at camp. And I've really taken that to heart. Yet there's nothing more defining in my life than challenge. I think I grow the most in challenge. And I think I have the most comfortably uncomfortable challenges in the wilderness. And if I can summit this really beautiful crag, right? I was just backpacking in Colorado for a bit, and the aspen groves were starting to turn color, and they were turning yellow and orange, and we were climbing these pink granite crags, these beautiful bubbles in Pike National Forest, me and my best friend, and we climbed up, and it was hard, and I wasn't wearing the right gear, and I didn't have water, and I didn't feel well. But when we got to the top, all of a sudden, I remembered how to breathe, and I remembered that there were these aspen groves surrounding us that were changing color, and I could feel the crisp autumn air turning, and the sun was coming up behind this incredible mountain called Prospector, and there was life all around me. And I really felt like I tapped into that life force by becoming a part of it, experiencing it. I feel like instant gratification influences a lot of my life now, especially with my world being online. And it's so humbling and hard and wonderful to have to work to get to the top, to have to struggle to keep going, to carry my pack for another mile, or to hike through rain, to hike with wet boots. It's the most grounding experience that makes me feel the most alive.
Thank you. Erica or Auben?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I'm just reflecting on, different experiences in nature as a child hiking compared to being an adult. I'll never forget that backpacking trip at Mammoth. We were backpacking for 10 days. We got rained out. And it was very challenging. I remember we got lost, and some of the trails disappeared because of the rain. So I think for my parents, it was a bit scary, especially thinking about food supply with 2 little kids. But for me, I was more carefree, and coming out of that experience, I just felt so happy, and I felt like I could do anything. And it was just a very powerful feeling for a child to have at 4 years old that I still remember. And as an adult, when I go for hikes, it's often about feeling peaceful and about reflection, because there's something about being in nature and hiking where you can just kind of piece things together, piece your life together, reflect and ponder. And it's very different as an adult. As a child, I think I was a little bit more adventurous, and it was just a different mindset. But as an adult, it's more about perspective and reflection and feeling at peace.
It's beautiful. And Aubin?
You know, when we were kids, we hiked a little bit, but certainly when I moved to Southern California, that's when I really started hiking a lot. One of my sisters lives in Colorado, and so we did a 13er, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you can do this," and I was like, "You've got to be kidding! There's no way I can do this." And we started at about 9,000, so we ascended about 4,000 feet. And I'd only been at her house, which is, I guess, her house is now at about 9,000 feet for a couple days, and we did it. And, you know, she practically had to pull me up the last 300 yards or 400 yards. They must have taken like 2 hours, I think. But when I got up there, I was like, oh my God, if I can do this living at sea level, you know, think of what I could do if I lived in Colorado all the time. And so now I'm sort of like, oh, that might be the next part of my life, because ascending these high peaks is just, there's something so freeing and terrifying at the same time. I'm like, oh my God, can I really do it? But yeah, of course you can do it. You have to have faith.
Yes. Do you think, you know, does nature, the different trees, the plants, the flowers, the animals, remind you of the blessings of our Creator and the diversity of humanity?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's also talks about the oneness. You know, we're all interconnected, we're all interwoven. And, you know, when you're in nature, you know, the color of your skin, your religion, your weight, your height, all of those things, nothing matters. Nothing matters. It's just, you're there and you're, you know, as Nina said, you're just being. And that's a pretty important and powerful place. There's not a lot of places where you can just be without a lot of the pretenses that life throws our way.
Erica?
I second what you say, Aubin, exactly. The other thing I was gonna say is it's a reminder too that, I mean, in Arabic we say God is Rabb al-Alameen. He's God of all of the world. No one has a monopoly over God, not the Muslims. No one.
Yeah.
He's everyone's God. So, and exactly what Aubin said, I second her and everything.
Nina? Oops.
Yeah, I think you can taste the blessings in everything that you're doing, whether you're hiking, swimming, biking, running. One of like these fun activities I do with my campers is on a really hot day, we hand out oranges and we ask them to close their eyes. And for 15 seconds, we tell them to hold it, to look at it, to study it, to feel it. And then after 15 seconds, we ask them to smell it. And we keep going and until they're like really just so desperate to open this orange and to eat it. And then after like 3 minutes, we're like, okay, dude, dig in. And they have this like incredible gratitude that I've never seen them have before. And they're like munching on this orange. And we're like, that's why we say blessings, because there's no way to really like put words to that feeling that you're consumed with right now, that like gratitude just can't cover it. But this like awe you feel for food. I like to think of a fork as an altar. Like it's food is so powerful. And I think like nature is an altar in its own right. Like we also are consumed with that just sensational appreciation when we like today I was driving through these fields of trees just completely turning into reds and oranges and yellows and the most majestic hues. And there's no way to put the vehicles of language into my feelings, but blessings really come close. That there's this indescribable power that has given me what I'm feeling and what I'm having. And I'm so thankful.
We're going to have a slight interruption because the dog just pushed his way into the room. So nature and his wonders. I do want to ask, 1 minute. otherwise he'll bark. I want to ask one thing which is very prevalent down in Southern California, and I'll thank Rachel for this, the fires, and what do we learn from these unbelievable fires in terms of our own spirituality? Is nature being destroyed? Is there rebirth because of the fires? How do we navigate all the displacement of the animals and the pain and the suffering of all these people who are losing their homes and sometimes their lives? Like, how do we make peace with that spiritually?
It's hard. It's hard. And, you know, it shows the immenseness and the enormity and the complexity of nature. And yes, you know, in your head that fires are good, that they do create growth, just like after the Mount St. Helens eruption. If you went there 10 years later, you would hike on these trails that were beautiful, soft lava fields, seeing, you know, signs of life where life had not been, or life had become dormant. So it's hard. It's really hard because everything, you know, fire is an element of, there is a sacred aspect to fire. And so how do you, I don't know. I don't have the answer for that one. It's complex. And it's bigger than me. It's bigger than me.
I think about resilience with the fire, and I think about, you know, what can we do for rebirth? And, you know, I think, you know, life is about balance. Islam is a lot about balance, right? So yes, there are fires, but then there's also, you know, rebirth and new life and new trees and new growth. So it's just kind of part of the cycle of life. And the other thing I think of is, you know, whenever there's a calamity like that, always look for the heroes. So in this case, the firefighters, and just to, you know, feel so blessed to have them, and just the heroic actions that they do. And it gives people opportunity to become a hero. So
And to have hope.
Yeah.
Exactly. Be resilient and have hope.
And hope.
Nina?
Yeah, I think of in the Bible, the pillar of fire that guided and led the people through the desert. I think with this fire comes an awareness that we aren't doing enough and that we can be doing more. And we can, tonight, like, we built this fire and one of my friends said, wow, fire really makes me feel like the simulation is so real. Like, we're living in a simulation. It's so powerful, this fire. Like, where did it come from? And it is, power has just the scariest qualities. It's so, I like can't even bend my mind to even conceptualize it. But I think in this moment, it's so scary and also really empowering that, like, we can really come together in these moments and we can work, we can save this planet, you know, like there's so much we can be doing to be protecting our nature and to take part in that process. And forestation is so incredibly important. So how do we educate about that? And how do we take part in preserving that?
We're just down to our last few minutes. So I'd love to invite each of you to take, 2 minutes to maybe give us any final thoughts on this conversation of nature as a sacred space. Who would like to go? Aubin?
No, I'm going to hold off on that one for a sec. Thanks.
Nina, do you want to give us some final thoughts?
Some final thoughts. I think now more than ever, the universe is asking you to come join it and inviting you to crawl into the sacred space of the wilderness. Over the summer, we didn't have camp. So my boyfriend and I went through 8 states, and we just kept walking and experiencing the world in a way that we never had, because there was no one to go see. We couldn't see any of our friends. There were no stores to go stop in. There weren't any restaurants to eat in. It was just us in the forest. That was all that were open. And it was the most intoxicating experience ever to just really be at one and to feel the constraints of linear time just pause, and to feel this connection with my worlds far deeper than I ever had, because I was there just to experience it and to see it and to appreciate it. And now that my life is online for my last year, I went back to Colorado, and my friends and I just kept tenting it up and walking and seeing and exploring. And there's something really powerful about this moment right now, because it can be just us and the trees, just us and the God we're feeling there, and just us. And it's autumn, and it's a really wonderful time to go pick some apples or pumpkins or walk through these incredible stalks of corn and to appreciate the harvest and the agriculture. Tonight is like the closing days of a Jewish holiday called Sukkot, which is really a sick holiday. It is super anti-capitalist, and it is back to nature. It is the original call back to nature. Since when we were wandering through the desert, we were most connected to God. We had these pillars of clouds and pillars of fires with us, and we felt the forces and the voices of God. And then we arrived at this land, and we built a society, we built a world, and we distanced ourselves. We boxed ourselves into houses and to a market and to an economy and to industry, and we lost our connection with God. So every year during the harvest, during this incredible agricultural season, we remove ourselves from materialism and we build these impermanent structures. And the one rule really is that you have to see the stars. How incredible is that? So profound that the entire basis of this holiday is to see the stars and to just be under the velvet sky and to feel how small we are, and yet how incredible it is that we are taking part in this massive galaxy of being. And I think it's the most awesome gift right now to just be able to go outside. That's kind of the only option, and it's the best option. So I think it's really cool to be having this conversation and to be hearing about all these different faiths and how everyone can find spirituality and connection and divinity and purpose in the wilderness. Yeah, and I think that's so special and wonderful.
Thank you. Erica or Aubin?
I was just gonna say, with COVID-19, things have changed a lot. And I think people appreciate nature and the outdoors more now than ever. And I remember, when you think about it, people who live in the city, we often think, oh, we have it so nice, it's so convenient, we can go here, we can go here, we have it all in the city. Well, with COVID, it's like everyone wants to go, to the back country where, it's less populated. And I remember I was visiting my grandma who's dying, and I had to socially distance seeing her. I was only able to see her from her glass door. But, just going to Santa Ynez, where I spent a lot of my childhood, and just seeing the beautiful nature and the fresh air and just the beauty. And it's like, you don't, when you go some places in Santa Ynez, you don't see a person for miles. It's just, it's just beautiful. You just feel like you're at one with God and with nature. And the other thing I was thinking about is with our spiritual homes being closed. I know the Islamic Center Southern California is closed, and a lot of people's spiritual homes are closed because of COVID. And it's a perfect chance to make your own spiritual home outdoors, and just to pray more outside and still have, that spiritual home that's, in all of our hearts, but to be able to make a new space outdoors to pray. So it's given that blessing to us as well.
Yeah, for COVID has certainly, nature has provided a distraction from COVID. And I think that, to be outside, and there's such a sense of freedom and a sense of, oh my God, you can really take a deep breath. And, if you are socially distanced and far from people, you can take your mask off and really take a deep breath in. And I think that has been a huge, that personally, not, with church being closed and church on Zoom, I will attend church on Zoom, but more often than not, I will watch it on YouTube later and go hiking on a Sunday morning, because that's really where I find my God, and I find my sense of awe and divine. And I do think that there's certainly, and even just simple things like, having flowers in the house and doing things where you bring nature in. I've noticed I'm doing a lot more of that and creating a space where I feel like I'm sort of outside, but really not outside, because it does make me feel there's a sense of calm and a sense of gratitude, immense gratitude.
Wow, this was just beautiful. I really want to thank Auben and Erica and Nina so much for this really fabulous conversation. The topic was really, really inspired by the whole planning committee. So just a big shout out to the planning committee, and Carol, Joan, and Cecilia put an overview together of all the planning committee's thoughts. And it was really a very engaged number of conversations we had to create this. So thank you everyone for all your work. And really thank you, the three of you, for your time prepping and then for coming together this afternoon. It's really wonderful. I can't figure out how to do the chat and give you my email, but if you want a copy of the interview, it is being recorded, and I think in the RSVP is my email. Just a few notes. The next Interfaith Study Group webinar will be Sunday, November 8th from 5 to 6. That webinar is called Personal Journeys of Faith, and our panelists will be Reverend Mike Kinman from All Saints Church, Pasadena, Alan Edson, who is the president of the NAACP Pasadena, and Rabbi John Carrier, who is the rabbi at the Pasadena Jewish Temple Center. And all these men will share very personal stories about how they got to where they are in their own personal journey. The invite should be going out next week. And as usual, we have a limited number of spots, so please sign up soon. And I just really want to thank you all for joining us today, for believing in the conversation, for being engaged. And we look forward to seeing you in a month. And thank you again to Nina and Erica and Auben for all of your time and for your very personal and thoughtful stories today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Gail. Thanks all.
Much. This was beautiful.
That was great.
It was
Wonderful.
definitely an honor.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And
See you on the hiking trails.
Yes, to see you hiking.
Exactly. We'll have to, once COVID gets better under control, we'll have to do an interfaith hiking group. How does that sound?
Definitely. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Are the
Yeah.
whole speakers meeting, or you're not? Auben,
You know what? We're not meeting officially, but if people want name ideas for hikes that are really safe during COVID, I'm happy to share those. And we have a couple of us that hike all the time, and if you're comfortable socially distancing and wearing a mask, feel free to join us.
Okay. And people can look on the All Saints Church site for that to get your details.
Or they can even I'm happy to share I saw there was a Q&A a question from, I think it was a woman named, I saw her name was Carol. I'm happy to, I'm happy to share, you can share my number or whatever, that's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much, Auben. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, hey, it'll be great. It'll be great.
Well,
Bye.
thank you so much, and have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
You too. Bye. Thanks again,
Bye,
Gail and
everyone.
Carol.
Thank you.
Shalom, shalom, peace, everyone. Take care.
Yeah.
Yeah.